I hope that this meeting this morning in the Philippines, where you are, will be somewhat helpful and informative. So I'm prepared to answer anything you might ask me. Remember that I speak in behalf of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ as General Counsel. I do not represent Pastor Quiboloy personally.
Welcome, Mr. Michael, in our show. And the first question I'd like to ask is, what is the status of the case filed against your client?
You're talking about the one that in Los Angeles, California?
Yes.
That was just continued until May, and maybe a little bit more information for you, counsel, because I know your reputation as an attorney. The thing that's interesting about that, which kind of plays into what's happening in your country and the SWAT team that appeared recently with 200 officers, that case was charged in 2021, the superseding indictment. They charged the pastor with, among other things, with sex trafficking. To this day, they've never attempted to have him arrested. So when you talk about the worst thing you can say about a man of the cloth, whether it's a minister, a pastor, to accuse them of doing the things he's been accused of in the Philippines and in Hawaii, in California, the California FBI has not even attempted to arrest him. So if he was such a danger and they believed what they were told by some of the dissidents, they wouldn't let 4 years go by. That case was just continued until May.
So why do you think the reason for the delay in the prosecution of the case?
Well, there's a number of reasons. I mean, whether they're getting the cooperation they want from some of the dissidents, whether they can trust some of them. There's one in particular, I wouldn't trust the guy if he told me it was daylight out. I'd go check and look outside the window first. But I think that what they would like to do, they say, is maybe try to get extradition to some of the people from the Philippines. But, this is a case where there's probably 17 or 18 dissidents out of 8 million people that are members of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ. So, it's a small number. They're very vocal, and they have a motive, in my view, to get back at this kingdom and the pastor. And, of course, it's had a very chilling effect on the kingdom and the people that have been dedicated for decades to young children, poor people, and it's had a very chilling effect, especially, and maybe I'm talking longer than I should and give you a chance to ask me questions, especially what I call a Star Chamber proceeding by one of your senators, Risa Hontiveros, which is her resolution, frankly, was a very chilling effect on all lawyers and should be very chilling effect on everyone in your legislature in the Philippines. And I can read you the part that I'm so concerned about and what I wrote the president of the Senate about and sent her a copy. But I can wait later on if you want to ask me about that.
Well, I'd like to ask you, in regard to the cases filed against Pastor Quiboloy, I understand there have been several hearings scheduled, but all these were reset or postponed. What's the reason? What's the ground for the resetting?
The last time, and just recently, there were multitude of documents that the government has never turned over to us. There were 60 in particular. Years have gone by, and I am told by our team of lawyers in California, they've been withholding documents all along. There are protective orders, so some lawyers representing some clients are prevented from looking at documents before trial. So, once they give us everything we're entitled to, the case will go forward. I mean, our judge he's a senior citizen. He's 90 years old. We've been waiting to go to trial for years, but the government's got to turn over the information that the defendants and their lawyers are entitled to.
Given the fact that there has been an unreasonable delay in the prosecution of the case, can you not, as lawyer for your client, move for a dismissal of the case for failure to prosecute on the part of the U.S. government?
We have agreed to the continuances because we need information, we need documents, we need discovery, and I can tell you, because of the money that's been spent by the government to put this case together, there's not going to be a dismissal. What we're trying to do is get certain counts severed from other ones because, whether or not they'll ever serve a warrant on Pastor Quiboloy remains to be seen. But so far, we've agreed to continuance because we have to make sure we have everything that we need. This judge is not throwing anything out, and I can only tell you, any motion we make, we may wind up getting forced to trial with not having everything that those lawyers need to defend their clients. But it's a very good question. Thank you, Sal.
Can we ask the court by way of a motion or a petition to compel the government to give you the documents you need?
Yes, they've done that, and they're now turning over the documents. Whether there was an official motion, the lead counsel, as it turns out, for the government, they keep changing, but the lead assistant U.S. attorney, in fact, used to work for the law firm of one of our team members that's defending the case. So people keep coming in and leaving the case, but we've advised them what we need, and they are turning it over now.
I'm curious, Mr. Michael, what is the standard for a court to dismiss a case for failure to prosecute? Because in our country, there have been cases that have been dismissed by reason of unreasonable delay in the prosecuting of the case.
Well, the standard is basically if there's an order to compel and they don't comply with the order, and they do things that the court thinks might be unethical, hiding witnesses, hiding statements, those kinds of things. If there's no movement, the court may grant that kind of a motion. There's been such tremendous publicity worldwide on this case that the lawyers we have working on this now for the kingdom and for the individuals. Remember, the kingdom was never charged in this case in Los Angeles. They really fine lawyers, Sal, and they know when to step on someone's neck, so to speak, and when to move the case so everybody can be ready. And all these lawyers are busy. So one of the lawyers is in trial. The date that it was set, and it's just hard to get everybody together. And once they superseded, they brought in new defendants, several of which are in the Philippines. And one of the reasons I think that the government has been delaying is an attempt to try to get those people back to California, which is kind of nuts because they've never even served these people with warrants. I will tell you that you probably know this as well as anybody who's living in the Philippines. What the United States government did was they sent out a warrant of arrest, a photograph like we used to have in the Wild West, a picture of Pastor Quiboloy, and then below it talked about sex trafficking and terrible things. That's the only thing they ever did to say he's wanted for something, but never served the warrant. And whether that'll happen or not, who knows? So it remains to be seen. But these are very capable lawyers. And the questions you ask, you and I would know, and lawyers that are listening to our conversation may have the same kind of questions. Either do the case or walk away from the case. But things have come up that I can't share with you and that I've been told by the various lawyers for the defendants as to why, for now, it may make good reason not to go forward. The other thing is, as I said, they keep changing lead prosecutors. And obviously the most serious counts that have been charged is the sex trafficking charges. And the other charges are kind of minor charges. There's issues about the Children's Joy Foundation. There's issues about taxes and things like that. Issues about what they call fraudulent marriages. Those pale in comparison to the main charge, which is the sex trafficking charge.
From where I sit, I can see that the only reason why the U.S. government has delayed this case is because it cannot prove its case against Pastor Quiboloy.
I think they would have trouble proving many of the counts in this case. But, unless you've been involved in a similar type of church like this kingdom, and what the vow is. People that we've had mock, what I would call mock juries. We've had 3 of them. We all met for several weeks in California, and to get their reaction to what they heard. But they're very uncomfortable with the terminology of how the pastor was referred to. They didn't understand how people could get married for reasons other than sexual reasons as part of their marriage, that they were in love and they wanted to have children. Many of the people in this kingdom get married because they have the same conviction for the poor, the young, to give them better lives. And sometimes they get married and they get transferred separately all over the world to do their job. So there's a number of things that when we had our mock juries, we learned from those people. But the things you are raising, not to be condescending to you, Sal, are things a trial lawyer would raise. Things you are saying that would jump out at someone like you. And I can tell you that the lawyers in California are the best I could find, from the best firms, former assistant U.S. attorneys, very, very capable. They're not wasting time, but there's reasons for doing what they're doing and reasons for not doing what they're not doing.
Well, when is the next scheduled hearing in Los Angeles for this case?
It's set for May for trial. And then as discovery starts coming in, other motions may be filed. So we'll see what happens. But, my job is basically to watch over what the lawyers are doing. The government has told me early on they would file a motion to preclude me from coming in and trying the case, if need be. The case I tried in Hawaii for the KOGC coordinator here, they tried to get me out of that case as well. And that's when I had my first confrontation with this guy, Shashir Bandari. And that the government basically dismissed everything after we got to know Bandari really well, and we saw what the case was here, and the government saw what the case was. So a lot of moving parts in this case. A lot of moving parts. And because of the distance between the countries and getting documents and things like that, it's been very difficult to get it together.
So what is your projection about this case and 4 cases?
I think it's going to go to trial. And it probably, if we can't work something out, it's going to go to trial the next time it's set. The government believes that their marriage fraud case is the strongest case because there were so many people that were married, and some separated shortly after the marriage. Their reasons for getting married certainly were known to the kingdom and to the people that worship with pastor for the kingdom of Jesus Christ. But the ordinary person looks at this as though it was a marriage fraud, and that might be one of the most difficult cases to defend. But we'll see what happens. The case that is the most chilling is the accusation about the pastor committing those acts. And of course, that followed the investigation you had in the Philippines, which resulted in kind of the militia turning up with 200 policemen the other day, and the investigation that was done by Risa Hontiveros. I mean, I read her resolution. I frankly thought I was in a third world country. I never saw anyone with the responsibility of a representative, someone that the people elect and they trust, to write the kind of resolution I read. I was almost speechless. That's why I felt compelled as general counsel to write Senator Zubiri about what that senator had done. And I sent her a copy, of course.
That lady senator you referred to earlier is notoriously known in this country to subject persons being investigated in her committee and besmirch their reputation and try them by publicity. The reason, obviously, is not in aid of the legislation, but for publicity, to make herself politically relevant.
So, she's not the only one in the world in government that does things of that nature, but the horrible effect of what she did, and I had a copy of a resolution that caused me have this chilling effect on me as general counsel to write your Senate president, was she basically said that the pastor had committed the crimes, that he was already guilty of the crimes. She says, considering that the crimes were committed within the jurisdiction of the Philippines. And then she called certain witnesses that she knew wanted to cooperate against the kingdom and the pastor for her personal reasons, and counsel as a result of that. There's a warrant that comes out that's not a bailable warrant in the Philippines, sex trafficking. That just got thrown in and got added onto the thing. And the other crime that they were looking at was a bailable offense. So based on what she did, they threw in a second count, and that's the one that caused, I think, hundreds of policemen to wind up looking at, searching all over for the pastor like he was a common criminal. It's really awful. I mean, I've been involved with this kingdom and the Children's Joy Foundation. I've seen what he has done worldwide, and it's heartbreaking. But he's a strong man. He's convicted in what he has done. He will continue doing this. And I certainly have met with lawyers back in the Philippines, and they're very, very fine lawyers. And they'll make sure justice is done.
What is so objectionable and a travesty of justice is that the charges aired in the Senate committee investigation are the same charges filed in the city prosecutor of Davao City and were dismissed. And they were only corrected by the Department of Justice for a basis for the issuance of a warrant of arrest.
No, I what you were saying to me, it's almost like, how can people in power, people who have been elected, people that should be respected, do what they've done back in your country, in Manila and Davao City? And then I have to say this, and it kind of hurts me a little bit to do this, but I don't think they ever would have done this if they didn't have the backing of your president. I mean, and I'm not talking about your former president, who was one of the great honors of my life, having dinner with former President Duterte twice. But I don't think they ever would have got away with this unless they had 100% backing from President Marcos. I don't believe that. And if that's the people, in my view, the people in the Philippines deserve better. And you're talking to a lawyer whose wife was a Miss Filipina, her sister was a Miss Filipina, my daughter was a Miss Filipina, my office is 90% Filipino. I mean, it's almost ingrained in my blood, your culture. But the law, and what I do as a trial attorney for over 40 years, 45 years, this is awful. This is awful. And I'm sure someone like yourself, from what you say about this particular senator, but I'll tell you, so far she got away with it. When they tell me the police were at the gates to tear them down, and they're all over looking for this pastor, so far she's gotten away with it. And my hope is that justice will prevail, and someone will do something to right this wrong, because they just threw in that sex trafficking count to make sure that it's not a bailable offense in the Philippines. It's awful.
There's only one thing I can say about this abuse of power and what appears to be as a conspiracy between the executive and the legislative branches. And that is, for whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make mad.
Well, I will say this, and I hope your listeners understand and appreciate what I'm about to say, because obviously I'm not from the Philippines, but I have to tell you that I've had 2 meetings with former President Duterte, long dinner meetings with many lawyers present and many people that just wanted to reach out and touch him. We spoke about his history, how he got elected, what his campaign was, what he promised to try to reduce your country's drug dealers, drug possessions, abuse of household members at the hands of people they were married to that were drug addicts and drug distributors. I say this with complete conviction. If your former president believed for 1 second this pastor, I don't mean yours at your church, but Pastor Quiboloy was ever involved in sex trafficking, there wouldn't be a word said among the two of them. He would disown this pastor in a heartbeat. A man that I saw to be as righteous as I've seen him to be, and the love that people have for him. If he really believed this was going on and it wasn't a witch hunt, the relationship between Pastor Quiboloy and former President Duterte could never exist. And I believe that from the bottom of my heart.
Your perception of the former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte is 100% accurate.
Yeah. Well, he's when I had dinner with him, I was kind of in awe. The second time, I just was for a few hours. And the second time, I was hoping that we could have that dinner a second time. And then, of course, Pastor was with us and some of the lawyers, and my office manager was chief of staff for Lito when he was mayor of Manila. So my whole office is kind of in tune to things that happen over there. But I never met anyone like your former president, and I know that his children are dedicated to being righteous leaders in your country. His son, his daughter. That's how he spent his life, and but I knew after some hours and talking to him, this pastor wouldn't be within 100 miles of your former president if he believed for a second the things he was being accused of were true.
Thank you, Michael, for
Attorney Sal,
having with Joe, for your insights and for giving us an update on the cases filed against Pastor Quiboloy.
No, I'm happy, Sal, to do this. You know, it's in your lifetime as an attorney and things you've seen and things you've done. Every once in a while, we run across something that remains with us as lawyers for the rest of our lives. Sometimes you see an injustice that in your heart of hearts, you know is wrong. And, I'm dedicated to the kingdom as their general counsel. I appreciate you allowing me to be with you this morning in the Philippines. My hope and prayers are with the kingdom. We'll survive this. And I truly believe the pastor will be able to survive this. I'm so honored to see you and to be part of this program. Thank you so much.
Attorney Green, yes. Before we end, Attorney Sal, there's one last question. Attorney Green, perhaps you're aware of the recent events where heavily armed authorities stormed the KOJC religious compounds, which housed thousands of church missionaries, supposedly to serve arrest warrants. They had no search warrants. Former President Duterte, who is also the KOJC property administrator, described the operation as excessive and overkill. How do you view this situation, sir? Is this somehow similar to what happened in California, where heavily armed stories also raided our house congregations there?
When you talk about Pastor Quiboloy and what they did, the perception of the people in the Philippines when they saw this had to be fear, outrage, and some people may be believing, would the police do this if he wasn't a criminal? In California, when I read the staging of these policemen getting together with their guns and their ammunition and their batons and their search warrants early in the morning, and they had all these buses drive in, all empty except for a driver. And the plan was to rescue these poor people that are being held against their will at the compound. People forced to be there. People forced to go out and raise money for children, raise money for the church. Empty buses pulled in, they executed the search warrant, and empty buses pulled out. There wasn't a single person they found in that compound that wanted to leave the church. I mean, somebody someplace has got to stop listening to people like Bendari and these dissidents. And one day, I think it'll come to pass where they'll be shown to be what they are. And I hope it comes sooner rather than later. And my hopes and prayers are with Pastor Quiboloy, and I'm not being condescending to you, Sal. I know who you are. I know a lot about your life as an attorney and the people you've represented. You wouldn't be part of this if you believe this for a second. There's no way you would be. I mean, I know you're in private life now. You don't have anything to gain by being in a national program and being so supportive and being able to say publicly, this senator we talked about is notorious for trying to destroy the lives of people like this pastor. People like you don't have to do this, but it's the righteous thing to do. And I hope as young lawyers follow us in their careers, they will have the strength to be able to stand up for what they know is right and to speak out against what they know is corrupt.